Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Yes, hello, welcome. My name is Ben Dworkin. I am the director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics here at Rider University. The Rebovich Institute now celebrating our 15th anniversary. And a round of applause for that. On behalf of Rider University and the Rebovich Institute, I want to welcome all of you to an evening with Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli. This is our first official event for this academic year. It kicks off our ongoing Governing New Jersey Speaker Series, and we are extremely proud. If you want to become governor, you come and give a speech here. And that is something we have dedicated ourselves to. So we have the Assemblyman, and as you see in your programs, we have in October, for the Democrats in the room, want to let you know, we've got Tom Byrne, the former state party chairman, will be coming too. We have a couple of Rider dignitaries who are here, and I want to recognize them. We are honored to have with us the university president, Dr. Gregory Delomo. As we just begin, I'd like everybody to take out your cell phone. Take it out. But don't turn it off yet. Everybody take a selfie and post it on Facebook and tell everybody that you're here having a good time. We want to make everyone who's not here jealous, okay? The Assemblyman will appreciate that everyone was buzzing about, the Rider event. But yeah, so students, you know how to do this. Take a selfie. Come on, do it. Okay, I'm looking for. I'm going to check your Facebook later. But Facebook, Twitter, where we'd love to see posts that you were here at this event. Here at and then you can turn it off, right? So it doesn't ring. Here at the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics, we have two primary missions. The first is to raise the level of political discourse. With programs like tonight, we hope to make everyone a little bit smarter. And when everyone is better informed, we can all make more enlightened decisions and have a more enlightened discussion about how to face the challenges facing our great state in the future. Now, the second part of our mission is to train the next generation of political leaders, something that our speaker tonight has always committed himself to doing throughout his public life, working with young people, talking with young people, being involved, engaged. I'm proud to say I've had you in my class, sir, and I am thrilled that we're able to host this event as well. Now, the Rebovich Institute provides career services ranging from how to build your resume to how to give a real handshake, how to make an elevator pitch, all of these kinds of things. And we place our students in internships, in politics, in government, in public affairs, and advocacy. But because we know that these internships are so valuable, indeed critical, we also recognize that they are largely unpaid. The Rebovich Institute, for that reason, now provides thousands of dollars. This past summer, we gave away $17,000 in intern scholarships to unpaid interns who did the work in politics and government and public policy this summer. A couple of you are here, Rebovich Fellows. I ask you to just stand and be recognized, please. Thank you. Scholarship support for these students comes from our fundraising each year, and I'd ask you to note, again, inside your program, this coming March, we have our biannual Rebovich Gala on March 10th. It is an important event. It really helps us keep things going and support these students. And I encourage all of you to keep the date free, and if you can be supportive, please do so as well. Let me just tell you how tonight's program will work. I'm going to introduce a Rider student who will then introduce Assemblyman Ciattarelli. And at the conclusion of the Assemblyman's remarks, we will open it up to questions. As is our tradition, the first two questions need to come from Rider students. So as eager as you might be, Tom, you just gotta wait. Please note that everything, everything is being recorded and is on the record. All remarks should be considered such. During the Q&A, we will have two student volunteers. Because we're recording it, we will have two student volunteers with wireless microphones able to move around. So if you get picked by the Assemblyman to ask your question, please wait until the person gets to you with the wireless mic. This is so that we can record it, and when people watch this, if they couldn't be here tonight, and they're going to watch it online in the next few days, they can actually hear the question. There you go. Okay. It's always a privilege to show off our students here at Rider. We're very proud of them. And so I take great honor in bringing up a young woman from Marlton, New Jersey, a senior who is a public relations major. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of this year's Rebovich Fellows, Debbie McFetridge.
Thank you, Dr. Dorkin. Thank you all for being here this evening. We are pleased to have Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli of Hillsborough Township with us tonight. Assemblyman Ciattarelli currently represents New Jersey's 16th legislative district. Since taking on this position in 2011, he has sponsored and co-sponsored 60 laws which benefit many, including our veterans, children, and animals. As a co-founder of American Medical Publishing and the founder and CEO of Galen Publishing, Assemblyman Ciattarelli has created numerous jobs in New Jersey. Outside of his legislative duties, he coaches recreation sports teams in Hillsborough and participates annually in the St. Baldrick's Foundation's head shaving events to raise money and awareness for children battling cancer. With Governor Christie being term limited, Republicans will need new leaders to emerge. I am confident that someone such as Assemblyman Ciattarelli will be able to take on this role and guide our state in the right direction. As a Rider student and a proud Republican, I am honored to be introducing a man who is so dedicated to his community, as well as the future of New Jersey. Please join me in welcoming Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli.
If I can get a hard copy of that, I want to bring it home and read it to the kids. Let's be clear. Even if I wasn't running for governor, I would come here and speak at Rebovich. So, if I may, just the student section. Who wants to hold public office one day? Raise your hand. Wow, I'm impressed. That's fantastic. Just real quick. Why?
Because I want to help people.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. It's a good answer. Every once in a while I ask that question, I get a student raise their hand and says, why do you want to run? They say, power. That's the wrong answer. That is the wrong answer. I love the 16th legislative district. Of the 40 legislative districts in New Jersey, there are 40 legislative districts in New Jersey. Each one represents 220,000 people. That's how we get to 8.8 million citizens. My district spreads 4 counties. It has some of the most rural sections of New Jersey out in Delaware Township and some of the most urban areas in South Brunswick. And it has every ethnicity, every religion, and everyone along the political spectrum. And I love it. I love it because it's diverse. I love it because it's a microcosm of New Jersey. I love it because when I'm in Princeton, I'm a country club Republican, and when I'm out in Hunterdon County, I'm a bleeding heart liberal. Maybe that says I'm doing my job, I don't know. But it is a great district because it is a microcosm of New Jersey. Quite frankly, I think the more diverse your legislative district, the better you are as a legislator. The better you are as a legislator. There's something else I really like about my district that drives the Republican apparatus nuts. It has more Democrats than Republicans. And what that means is I have to earn every one of my elections. And that's okay by me. I'm one of those Americans that believes in that ideal of self-reliance and rugged individualism. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a good receiver. I'm not a good receiver. I want to earn what it is that I get to get my hands onto. So the legislative district is wonderful. The task tonight that I've been given is to talk about the state of the state and what the next governor or leader needs to do to send the state in a different kind of direction. So with regard to the state of the state, I'm going to give you the good news first. The people of this state are as decent and hardworking as any around the nation, and they are tremendously resilient. Here's the bad news. Fiscally speaking, we're on the brink. You all know the issues. You all know the crises. They affect every single New Jerseyan. It's unfair and ever-escalating property taxes which affect all of us in one way or another, even if you do not own your property. Even if you're a renter, high property taxes affect you. Unfunded pensions, crippling debt, downgrades of our debt over and over again, an inability to fund core priorities like infrastructure and the like. And so one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about is the fact that we need a plan. A very, very bold and comprehensive plan that is worthy of bipartisan support. Worthy of bipartisan support. A little bit about me. I'm not really rigid in my ideology, and I think it helps having 4 children. If I wanted to, I could pick 4 arguments every single night at the dinner table, but we don't accomplish much when we argue. We accomplish a whole lot more when we talk. So I'm not rigid in my ideology. I think that I'm very, very pragmatic in my discipline, in my fiscal discipline. Fiscal conservatism, rather. Very pragmatic in my fiscal conservatism. We've got challenges in New Jersey, and I'm telling you this. You know what happens when you dig a hole so deep? There are laws that require support to be on both sides, because what will happen? It starts to cave in. That's kind of where we are in New Jersey. So I believe along the lines of what Abraham Lincoln once said, give people the facts. They'll do the right thing every single time. And the facts are not pleasant, but with a plan that maybe has a little bit of short-term pain, we can have some real long-term gain and prosperity for all New Jerseyans. So let's get to the 5 issues, if you will. Let's get right to them. There's one issue above all others that paralyzes New Jersey, fiscally speaking. There's one issue that will solve the property tax crisis and our pension crisis, and that one issue is public school funding, the subsidy that's provided by the state. People don't know this, but Brendan Burnett put in place, he championed an income tax. And every single dollar of income tax that comes into Trenton from all 8.8 million citizens, it aggregates right now about $15 billion, goes back out to support public education. 10 of the $15 billion goes to K through 12. K through 12. And I'm telling you this, the manner in which that $10 billion is distributed to our 588 school districts around the state is terribly flawed and blatantly unfair. I'm not going to blame anybody because that gets us nowhere. I want to believe that it's inadvertent. I want to believe that it's accidental. I want to believe it's because the formula is so complex, like the tax code, there are loopholes that are now being exploited. I want to give you an example. When an $850,000 home in Jersey City pays less in property taxes than a $300,000 home in Manville, New Jersey, a town that's been ravaged by the exit of manufacturing and a town that's been ravaged by flooding, we have a problem in New Jersey. There is not a property tax crisis in every single town in New Jersey. There's a property taxes in a great many towns, in fact, most towns, but not all towns. Not all towns. When people that own a $1 million townhome in Hoboken can send their 3- or 4-year-old to free pre-K with no means testing, when a Manville, New Jersey doesn't get a dime for free pre-K, we have a very inequitable situation in New Jersey. And when we get to the Q&A, I'm all ears. We should all be concerned about this inequity with school funding. It's causing disparity in the community. On Tuesday, I will announce that I'm running for governor. And it is by no accident that I'm doing it in Manville, right in the front of one of their public schools. Manville is underfunded according to the current law, not according to Democrats, Republicans, or any think tank. According to the current law, as produced by an OLS analysis, Manville is underfunded by almost $10 million. It gets $10 million less than it should for its schools. That's about 15% of its budget. Hoboken is overfunded. And the current formula has this grandfather clause in it that does not allow a district their aid to be reduced even as it has revitalized. No aid is ever meant to be a subsidy in perpetuity. It's meant to be a bridge until a community can stand on its own feet. Jersey City can. Hoboken can. And so it's time. It's time. It's time for reform. So I have this 5-point plan that I believe is bold enough, comprehensive enough, and worthy of bipartisan support. What it says to the 200 school districts in this state that are overfunded by over $500 million, your excess is going to be reduced 20% a year. And over 5 years, you'll get to where you should be. And we're going to take that excess and give it to all the school districts like Manville that are underfunded. That are underfunded, because that's fair. That's fair. Of the 588 school districts in New Jersey, 26 have free pre-K for all 3- and 4-year-olds. No means testing. The Wall Street Journal chronicled about 3 months ago the highest real estate sale in the history of Hoboken, a townhouse for $6.5 million. The taxes on the house are $43,000. Put that house in Manville, the taxes are $157,000. That has nothing to do with the inability of local leadership to control costs. It has everything to do with the distribution of school aid. The people that live in that $6.5 million townhouse can send their 3- and 4-year-olds to pre-K for free. Manville doesn't get a dime for free pre-K. The formula is unfair, it's flawed, it holds the key to our property tax crisis and our pension crisis. And it is the first point in my 5-point plan. The second point is benefits reform. I was not in the legislature in 2011 with the law known as Chapter 78 that required public employees to start to contribute to their health insurance. That's fair. I think it is. And for public employees to contribute more to their pensions. What we have not reformed is the post-retirement health care benefit. Most people who retire have a decision to make when it comes to Medicare. They are going to buy what's known as a Medicare supplemental plan or Medicare gap insurance, and then they're going to decide whether or not to get Medicare Part B. Most Americans from the private sector have Medicare Part B deducted from their Social Security checks. My 84-year-old mother has Medicare Part B deducted from her Social Security check. In the public sector, when you retire, the state is paying state workers and retired teachers, the state is paying their Medicare supplemental and their Medicare Part B. And so the benefits reform portion of my plan says this. If your pension plus your Social Security, because let us not forget that employers match Social Security dollar for dollar. Employers contribute to Social Security too. If your pension plus your Social Security exceeds $50,000, you will begin to pay for your own Medicare supplemental and your own Medicare Part B. If your pension plus your Social Security exceeds $40,000, that was the promise. You can keep the Medicare supplemental, but you will pay for Medicare Part B. If your pension plus Social Security is under $40,000, we will honor the original promise. Now, some people say, but isn't a promise a promise? I would say this to you. When any one of my 4 children were born, I looked at them, even though they didn't understand what I was saying, and said, you will be able to go to any school you want because I will start squirreling money away today. If something happened to me, something catastrophic, something changed, and I was not able to keep that promise, the promise I made that was very well-intentioned. But we're not suggesting that we shouldn't all benefit from the miracle of modern medicine where people living into their 80s and 90s, are we? That's what's making these benefit plans unsustainable. So if you make more than $50,000 pension plus Social Security, it's X in terms of benefit reform. If you make over 40, under 50, it's Y. If it's under 40, you're A-OK. And for all new hires, there will be no Medicare benefit, post-retirement health care benefit, and you will go into a 401k. It is interesting how in the public sphere, when we talk about a 401k, people get apoplectic. If you were to ask me whether or not I want to be in the current pension system, which is supposed to go broke in 2027, versus being in a 401k where I have money deducted from my paycheck every week and it's matched by the employer and the money is sitting there in my account, it's actually sitting there, I would take that every day of the week. What's happening right now with our youngest workers that come to work for the state and the school districts, guess what? It's becoming transgenerational, just like Social Security. The withholdings, the pension withholdings that we're taking from young workers today are actually paying the benefits of people who are already retired. It was never supposed to be transgenerational. It's unfair to today's new hires. Unfair. The third point in my 5-point plan is tax reform. Our tax code in New Jersey is page after page after page of disincentive. Page after page after page of disincentive. We are one of only 2 states in the union that has not only an estate tax, but a transfer inheritance tax. And so, and by the way, I'm not an attorney. I'm an MBA CPA, and the numbers kind of come easy to me. And the ledger always has to balance. It's in my DNA. I love the field of accounting. And I was accepted to this great university to study accounting. And I'm sorry I went to Seton Hall. We need to abolish the estate tax. I believe in an estate tax at the federal level. Teddy Roosevelt, a progressive Republican, once said that the most successful amongst us have a peculiar obligation to society. I believe in an estate tax at the federal level. There is no room for an estate tax at the state level. We should also abolish the transfer inheritance tax. We should allow for the carry forward of capital losses. We should not tax the gain on the sale of your home. A home is not a stock or a bond. It is your home. In a state with all this shoreline and all these lakes, and even a great many middle-class New Jerseyans owning a second home, we should not tax the gain on the sale of a second home. Think about people that own a second home in New Jersey, the state with the highest property taxes in the nation. You paid all the years that you owned that second home, municipal property taxes, county property taxes, and school property taxes. Did you use any of those services? You didn't use any of those services. And yet, what do we do when you go and sell the second home? We tax you on the gain on the sale of that home. And the last thing that we should do, after all the corporate welfare that we've done, and I get it with the corporate recruitment and corporate retention programs, we should make the first $1 to $5 million of gain on the sale of a family-owned business, mom and pop shops on Main Street, because for them, that business is their 401k. Make that tax-free. And watch entrepreneurship. Watch us change the perception of New Jersey overnight from what is, and Tom Bracken knows this, considered to be one of the most unfriendly business climates in the country. And by the way, and I'm not one to dwell on bad news, but the report came out last week. We are last in the nation in economic growth. We've got to get this genie back in the bottle. And we will balance the ledger with those kind of tax cuts which benefit all New Jerseyans by playing with our tax brackets at the upper brackets and closing some corporate loopholes. Closing some corporate loopholes so that we balance the budget. We need to do this in a fiscally responsible way. The fourth and fifth points in my plan are these. I believe there needs to be much better and effective communication. And as governor, I would make sure that at least twice a year, the governor of this state, the majority leaders and minority leaders from both parties, the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, sit down with both of our U.S. senators and 12 congressional elected officials. Our 14 members of the New Jersey congressional delegation, 2 U.S. senators and 12 congressmen, and sit down and talk about how the federal government can help with 1 to 2 issues a year where the federal government can have a role in partnering with us. We all know that New Jersey is has one of the worst track records in the nation in terms of how much income taxes we send to Washington and versus what we get back. And yet I see very little communication that takes place. No one, Don Parker doesn't run his business this way. He sits down with his senior leadership. Right now, I see no communication whatsoever between the governor of this state and our congressional leadership, and I think that needs to change. And it really shouldn't matter what the political makeup is of the governor's seat, the speaker, the minority leader, the majority leader, the Senate president, or the congressional. We should all have one thing on our minds. What's in the best interest of New Jersey? And the last point in the plan, of the 5-point plan, is a more efficient government. Was anybody affected this year by the long lines at the Division of the Motor Vehicle Commission? You heard about it? You read about it in the paper? Pretty bad, right? When I researched that, because we have a motor vehicle agency right in my district in Somerville, here's what I learned. There was a computer glitch. And the reason there was a computer glitch is because the hardware and software that's used to support the Motor Vehicle Commission is 20 years old. Some of them are still using DOS. Does anybody here remember DOS? I remember DOS. It's one of the oldest operating systems there is. We need to reinvent our government, and what I would seek to do in a workforce of 65,000 in state government is I would look to accomplish some efficiencies amongst our workforce, and rather than return that savings to the taxpayers, ask the taxpayers for some grace to reinvest that in different technology in New Jersey and our state government. and Motor Vehicle Commission be the first place to start. There are so many other states that have done very, very advanced things using technologies. Many other states have been very successful with what they call skip the trip. By using the internet, you don't even need to go to a Motor Vehicle Commission local agency for a number of different things in other states, but not in New Jersey. This would improve the quality of life for citizens on a daily basis, and it would also make life better for our businesses from a regulatory standpoint, because if they have vehicles, they're subject to regulations with the Motor Vehicle Commission Agency. So that's the 5-point plan. It has to do with school funding reform. It has to do with pension reform. It has to do with our tax code, more effective communication with the congressional delegation, and then more efficient government. What else? What troubles me greatly is the situation we're in right now with the Transportation Trust Fund. Transportation Trust Fund. And here's the kind of conversation I would have been having with the people of New Jersey 4 years ago. And what's really amazing, and I need to tell you, I hate raising taxes. I hate it. But there's one thing we should all hate more than taxes. Debt. Debt. In the 6.5 years that the governor has been in Trenton, the Transportation Trust Fund debt has gone from $9 to $16 billion. As of July 1st of this year, the aggregate gas tax revenue that we produce when we purchase gas does nothing other than make the mortgage payment. So there's no additional money to spend on infrastructure. Mr. President, if you didn't have money to spend on your infrastructure, where would you be running this university? Big trouble. Big trouble. And so I would have been having a different conversation with the people of New Jersey over the Transportation Trust Fund. This is a tax that we have not raised since 1988. And over those 30 years, fuel efficiency standards in cars has tripled. We actually collect less gas tax today than we did in 1988. Yet through inflation, what has happened to the cost of the projects? They've gone up. So I know what my liability is, if you will. It's wanting to have a very, very honest dialogue with you. I'm not very good at kicking the can down the road. And one of the things that frustrates me most about collective decision-making bodies like legislatures, they will kick the can down the road every single time. Every single time. In the hope that some miracle comes along, like an economic boom, or some tobacco settlement where there is lawsuit monies coming to the state in the billions. I don't like to manage that way. I don't like to make extremely important decisions based on assumptions. I want to do what's in the best interest of the state. And sometimes there's a little bit of short-term pain. But you know what I find fascinating? When gas was $4 a gallon, when I first came into the legislature, I didn't get a single call from one of the 220,000 constituents in my district complaining about Exxon charging you $4 a gallon. But yet we don't want to seem to have a conversation about a gas tax that would rid us of the crippling debt, improve our infrastructure, and put middle-class New Jerseyans to work. I know what Tom Bracken would say, Jack, whether you're right or wrong, that's leadership. Quite frankly, that's the kind of leadership I do want to provide. It starts with having your facts. It starts with having an honest conversation and not shying away from the very, very difficult decisions that we face here in New Jersey. And I also go about it in a way that I hope is respectful. One thing you'll never find from me, if you oppose me on anything, our dialogue will not be a battlefield in which I need to bludgeon you to death in public. Abraham Lincoln once said, 2 people can honestly disagree and neither one be wrong. Gandhi once said that difference of opinion is the essence of democracy. Difference of opinion and compromise is the essence of democracy. That's really what I'm all about in trying to be the best representative that I can in the state legislature. And so you'll often hear people say it's an honor and a privilege. Indeed it is. And there are 8.8 million people in this state. Only 121 get to decide our laws. 80 assembly people, 40 senators, and 1 governor. That's a pretty exclusive company. 8.8 million and 121 get to decide the laws of the land. I take that responsibility very, very seriously. very seriously. And with that, I'm happy to open the floor for Q&A. And I hope that there'll be some, because it makes me a better legislator.
The Assemblyman will actually be at the podium. We've got two people to hold microphones. If you have a question, just raise your hand. The Assemblyman will pick you. First two questions come from Rider students. So,
Hello.
How are you, sir?
Hi, I'm a global studies senior here at Rider. You mentioned the inheritance tax and that you wanted to remove it. Many Republicans refer to it actually as the death tax. So what would you do to remove this death tax so that, you know, when our grandparents or even our parents after 100 years hopefully pass away, what will you do so that we won't have to be taxed on our family's fortune, let's say, for everyone?
Well, as of Tuesday of this coming week, my candidacy as governor will be official. So I guess tonight it's unofficially official, but I'm going to be very, very clear in my candidacy in running for governor that I've got a 5-point plan. And one of the 5 points in that plan is a tax reform package. And that tax reform package abolishes the estate tax, abolishes the transfer inheritance tax, amongst a few other things that I talked about tonight. And I will demonstrate in that plan how we will do that in a fiscally responsible way so that we do not blow a hole in our state budget, and let the effects of that tax plan take effect in terms of creating a tide that lifts all boats in New Jersey. Economic prosperity for everyone, for everyone. So we need to abolish those two taxes. They're differentiators. It makes New Jersey an outlier. Think of it this way, of the 50 states in the union, only 2 have both an estate tax and a transfer inheritance tax. And we're one of the 2. And on the estate tax, the threshold is $675,000. And then once you get above that, the tax rate is pretty high. And here's another dirty little secret. Once you get above that, we don't tax the value of your assets over $675,000. We value all your assets from 0. Once you're over $675,000, we don't tax the excess, we tax it all. We need to abolish those taxes. And listen, I'm not coming at that from a rigid right Republican philosophy. I'm coming at in terms of the perception of New Jersey and a tax code that is a disincentive. Let's get people feeling good about this state again. And one way to do that is reforming our tax code.
Hello, my name is Magnolia Gibson, and I'm a freshman here at Rider, and I'm a political science major. I noticed within the media there's this growing prevalence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the murder of particularly in particular our black men in this country. And there's a growing number of animosity towards our police. And I was wondering, if you would become government, what measures would you make to alleviate this issue?
Black lives do matter, all lives matter, and right now it is a very, very difficult time in the community. A very, very difficult time for minorities. It's a very, very difficult time to be in law enforcement. We have to ensure that our law enforcement personnel are receiving training and through that training, getting culturally competent. And I just think that that's the key. We also need to recruit other ethnicities into the law enforcement ranks. I think those would be a great start. And the other thing that we all need to do as Americans is take a deep breath and work together on a solution. This is a very, very difficult time. I wasn't alive at the time, but I try to be a student of history. And I think if you look back outside of probably just after Pearl Harbor, the times that we're up against right now are as challenging as the 1960s were, with all the social unrest, the riots, the Vietnam War, lawlessness, assassinations. These are very, very challenging times. And we need to pull together and have a dialogue on how best to solve these issues. I want to answer your question very specifically. I think that we need to make sure that our law enforcement personnel are getting the right type of sensitivity training with regard to cultural competencies and cultural differences in the community. And I think it'd be the best interest of law enforcement if we recruited more people of color into the law enforcement ranks. Yes, sir.
Hi. I was just wondering what would separate your term as governor if you were elected from Chris Christie, our current governor, and from other past governors of our state?
Well, listen, I'll just tell you what I'm all about. I'm about people. I'm not about power. I'm about accomplishment, not about credit. I subscribe to Harry Truman's motto. I care not who gets the credit. And one can accomplish a great deal if they care not who gets the credit. I have great respect for the legislature, and I have great respect for legislators. I have no disdain, nor do I consider the legislature to be a nuisance. They are an equal and important partner in the legislative process. And if you come to my company, you'll see a giant placard that's on the wall that says, "None of us is as smart as all of us." We have a very dynamic decision-making process at my company when we are faced with critical decisions. We all sit around a table and we brainstorm until the right solution emerges. It is very rare when one person unilaterally comes up with a solution unto themselves. It comes about through dialogue with people that sometimes has opposing views. There are ways for us to solve what troubles New Jersey. We just need to sit down and work at it. I'll tell you one other thing that I find very challenging about the legislature, and it's one of the reasons why I'll be seeking to be your governor. With all due respect, I didn't go to Trenton to vote on the state song, the state butterfly, or the eradication of stink bugs. Those are bills that I vote on. And I try not to get bogged down with the ceremonial aspects of the job. Nobody loves kissing babies more than I do. I love walking in a parade. I love ribbon cuttings, and I love groundbreakings. But that's not what I was elected to do. And I am not going to get caught up in the pomp and circumstance of the job. I sometimes see the daily and weekly schedules of our senior leadership in government and what it entails. And if we spent half as much time sitting down with people in Trenton and leaders around the state as we do at groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings, which, don't get me wrong, they're a necessary part of the job. You have to be an ambassador to the people. You need to be out in the community. But I got to tell you something. Any organization that faces the challenges we face here in New Jersey right now, we need to be sitting around a table and working at it. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dennis Farrelly, South Brunswick Township.
You're a constituent.
Yes, I am.
Are you a registered voter?
I absolutely am.
Well, then I report to you.
And I am an independent. I am involved in local governance, not politics. I am the co-chair this year of the Historic Preservation Commission. But first, I'd like to just applaud your implication that you would raise the gas tax. I did not hear those words actually uttered, but you said that you hate raising taxes, and you kind of implied it. So I do applaud that. My question really is, how are you going to address the inequity in the school funding from the executive office? You're going to get a lot of pushback when you start taking funds away. How is the governor's office going to be able to do that?
I think you have to make the argument. And it's extraordinary how this past summer, it was in July, I was invited to the NJEA conference to speak, and I went. And interestingly enough, when I showed up, a number of people said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "You invited me. And as long as you invite me, I'm coming." And one particular teacher who lives and works in Jersey City as a teacher came up to me afterward and said, "I thought I hated you." People in Jersey City don't realize the inequity. People in Jersey City don't realize that an $800,000 home is paying less in property taxes than a $300,000 home in Manville. People in Hoboken don't realize that their free pre-K is funded by the people from the other 564 municipalities, and it's not means tested, and that we don't get a dime for free pre-K in places like Bound Brook, Manville, middle-class towns. And when you start to explain to them the inequity, the first thing I always hear is, I didn't know that. That's not right. And I said, no, it's not. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to penalize the Hobokens in the Jersey City. There's a way to create a soft landing. So, for example, Hoboken, according to the Office of Legislative Services, not Republicans, Democrats, or any think tank, is overfunded by $7.5 million. They're overfunded. They get more money than they should. That will be reduced 20% a year over 5 years. That, to me, is a fair and soft landing. Now, here's what people are going to say about my plan. Ciattarelli's raising taxes. Well, guess what? The taxes are going to go up in Hoboken. But here's how I feel about that. If I'm paying $100 for something, and you're paying $12 for something, and then we make a change, and 5 years from now you're paying $25 for that something, you can tell me that your taxes went up, but I can tell you what we've done is fair. Here's my liability. I can't help but be transparent about what I think is the best thing for us to do. I'm not good at the rhetoric. I'm not good at the pandering, and I'm not good at being less than transparent. There is real danger in being a gubernatorial candidate, and if you go to my website on Tuesday, you will see a very, very detailed 5-point plan. The consultants will tell you it's better to talk in generalities. Don't tell them exactly what you're doing. Don't give them the details. I know no other way. I'm going to play it straight with the people of New Jersey, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And call my candidacy an experiment. But I look forward to it, and I keep coming back to Lincoln. Give people the facts. They'll do the right thing every time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carissa Zanfordino, and I'm a freshman global studies major. From someone not being from this state, I am from New York. I wanted to know about how you plan to tackle maintaining bridges and tunnels in between the two states, as getting home is very important to me, and the safety of getting home is very important to me, so tackling New York and New Jersey's infrastructure from the Jersey side.
Of course it is. And tonight's on the record, and I'm being recorded. So let me do what the consultants would tell me never to do, to be clear to my constituent here from South Brunswick. I've supported an increase in the gas tax going back to 2012. I was the first one to speak up in 2012 because you could see this iceberg. The iceberg was clear. It was on our radar. 4 years ago, it was on our radar. And what did we do on July 1st of this year? We hit it head on. And now we've got projects that have been shut down, middle-class New Jerseyans that are out of work, who've been furloughed, and it's really an embarrassment for the state. And yet, where did we end up during this crisis? With an overnight 23-cent increase. Overnight, 23 cents. Whereas what I was proposing in 2012 is a couple of cent increase, 2 or 3 cents on July 1st of 2012, 13, 14, and 15. We'd have all the money that we would need. We wouldn't have the skyrocketing debt, and we can have a state-of-the-art infrastructure. I do believe with regard to New York and New Jersey, the ARC tunnel needs to be resumed. And it needs to be done through negotiation with the state of New York. The governor recently canceled the reciprocity agreement with Pennsylvania over income taxes. Should you pay income taxes where you work, or should you pay income taxes where you live? In my opinion, the governor focused on the wrong border. We have 200,000 New Jerseyans that work in New York. And because New York's state and city income taxes are higher than New Jersey's income taxes, those 200,000 people pay no income tax to the state of New Jersey. Despite the fact that when they go into New York, they pretty much do not use municipal, county, or school services. And while they're working in New York, where do they buy their breakfast, Ben? And where do they buy their lunch? In New York. And if they work late, where do they buy their dinner? And if there's an anniversary or a party that night, where might they buy the gift? So they're paying sales tax too. New York reaps the benefit of 200,000 New Jerseyans. Income taxes and purchases and sales taxes. We collect zero from those people. We need to sit down with New York and work out a better deal. When you think about what it is that income tax is used for, in this state it's used for public education, I think you should pay income tax where you live. And I think New York needs to stop ripping off New Jersey. And I'll tell you what I would do. I would make a deal with New York. We'll pay for the ARC tunnel in its entirety if you let us keep the income taxes. Let's give them something to think about, right? So we'll pay for an ARC tunnel over 5 years with the collection of those income taxes, and after the 5 years, we get to keep those income taxes. And here's why New York ought to agree to that. because the more people that get into New York City to work, isn't that better for New York City's economy? Oh, I love this stuff. I love this stuff. Listen, John F. Kennedy once said, what man has created, man can solve. We can solve these things. We can solve these things. My job is this at my company. I don't have all the answers, and I certainly don't want to come across as being arrogant tonight and thinking that my answers are the be-all, end-all. My job is to initiate the discussion with an idea. And you all need to respectfully come to the table and say, good, bad, or here's the direction we should go. That's what the job of leadership is. Put the idea on the table. Let's at least jumpstart a discussion. Don't we wish that every single place in Trenton was like this great institute where we're advancing the public discourse? There's more public discourse taking place at this institute over the course of 1 month than I will tell you there is an entire session in Trenton. Next question. I've got a constituent from Hillsborough back here, and he's a registered voter too. And we were on the softball field together when our daughters competed.
Congressman, you mentioned...
Whoa, Assemblyman, don't get the Congressman nervous.
Sorry. Assemblyman.
Yeah.
David DeVore in Hillsborough.
Yes, David, good to see you again.
You had talked about abolishing certain taxes, and it's my understanding that New Jersey has a requirement to balance its budget.
It does.
If you're going to be abolishing taxes, what services would you be cutting in the short term? Because you had mentioned also short-term pain. So in the short term, what services do you foresee that need to be cut?
So I would not balance my tax cuts with cuts in services. When I talk about short-term gain, I'm talking about the notion that in places like Jersey City and Hoboken, their property taxes are going to go up because of my school reform plan. But their taxes are so comparatively low that I think it's only fair that they do go up. And again, it's not fair that an $800,000 house in Jersey City pays less than property taxes than a $300,000 house. With regard to my tax reform plan, we would balance the budget by changing the corporate tax rates at the upper brackets, and we would close a corporate loophole known as combined reporting. And then, after a 3-year period, I would seek to phase out the corporate business tax 10% a year over 10 years. I would prefer, rather than all the corporate welfare that we give away, that New Jersey be an attractive place for corporations to do business because of the quality and the competency of our citizenry. Hardworking, well-educated, great workforce here in New Jersey, hopefully a great infrastructure when we solve the Transportation Trust Fund. I would prefer to attract business by having a very, very attractive corporate business tax climate than having a corporate business tax but constantly giving away corporate welfare for corporate retention and corporate recruitment. So that's how I would balance the tax cuts, with changes in the upper brackets of our income taxes and closing the combined reporting loophole with corporations. Yes, sir.
Assemblyman Ciattarelli.
Yes, sir.
My name is Jesse Flood. I'm a junior here, poli-sci major with a finance minor, and I am from Flemington.
Excellent.
So I'm one of your constituents.
Are you a registered voter?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
I noticed you've been talking a lot tonight about school subsidiaries and the way that the state government gives money to schools. And 35% of every tax dollar in New Jersey is spent on public education, which estimates to about roughly $40 billion a year that taxpayers are paying.
Mm-hmm.
However, roughly 45% of students in high school drop out, do not continue on to higher education, and do not graduate with the skills necessary to better the workforce. Now, to me personally, as studying finance, I would say that's a bad investment. Not my question, though. Would a reformation to the distribution of subsidies fix the problem concerning a seemingly problematic system?
Okay. There's only one thing that will perfectly fix the problem, and that is more responsible parents and guardians. No matter how good a school, if a parent and guardian are not doing their job, it will not matter. It will not matter. I do believe in assessments. I'm not so sure that Park is the answer, but we need an assessment, and I will tell you why. But first, let me talk to the fact that the glass isn't half empty in New Jersey when it comes to public education. We have the highest high school graduation rate in the nation. The quality of our schools is phenomenal. And you will hear about a lot of people who move to Pennsylvania because the property taxes are less. But a great many of those people will also share with me the fact that they send their kids to private school. The cheapest private school in Somerset County is Immaculate Conception High School. It's $12,000 a year. If I sent all 4 of my children there, I'd be out $48,000 a year. I prefer to be out $20,000 a year on my property taxes and have my children attend the Hillsborough High School. So the glass isn't half empty. It's half full in terms of quality. But we need assessments, and I'll tell you why. There are, of the 21 counties in New Jersey, there are 4, 2 in the south and 2 in the central, Hunterdon and Somerset, that I represent, that share a community college. Stay with me now. Hunterdon and Somerset share a community college. Year over year over year, Hunterdon and Somerset, on a per capita basis, are in the top 5 in the nation on per capita income. And our high schools are great. And more than 50% of the incoming freshmen at our community college are in remedial courses. And they're using Pell Grants to pay for them. You pay for Pell Grants through your taxes. And then when they use up the Pell Grants taking remedial courses would grant them no college credit. They then have to start taking the college credits, which they pay for out of their own pocket. Those students came out of our high schools. And here's what's happening in our large high schools. It's what I refer to as the lazy river. Anyone's been to a water park, sat in the tube, and got on? Anna, have you ever done that, the lazy river? I've done it with the kids. It's a lot of fun. Ben, what does the lazy river do?
Takes you around.
Just takes you along. Just takes you along. And that's what's happening right now. We need greater accountability in our public school system. Greater accountability. But I want to be clear. Very much like sometimes we're asking law enforcement to do too much these days, let's be careful in how much it is we're going to ask teachers to do. Should there be accountability? Yes. Should there be assessment? Yes. Let us challenge ourselves on how best to assess. But making sure that our public school system is as good as it possibly can be is an ongoing challenge. At the end of the day, I will tell you what I do. And maybe I tend to oversimplify things. I go and look at the top graduators in any senior class at the public high schools in my district, and I see what colleges they're going to. And as long as I see the best colleges in the nation, that tells me that that school system is doing its job if students and families are doing theirs. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Manny. I'm a philosophy major here. And I'm really glad you brought up the point about community colleges because I'm a transfer student from one. I'm also a non-traditional student. I'm 27, and I dropped out of high school, did poorly, but I was able to go to community college because of the Pell Grant, so I guess thank you to the taxpayers. And I also want to say thank you to Ryder because they were very competitive in being able to get me here and make sure that that financial gap was able to be met. And but my point, or further to the point, 2014 are the levels that were cut to in the TAG and the EOF funding, some of those fundings that go to community colleges. I currently sit on the Board of Trustees at Salem Community College, which was ranked #1 in the New Jersey because they have a very competitive glass arts program, and they were also top, I think it was 10 or 15 in the country. The point of all that being up is the importance of a strong community college. Our community college, through the acting grant, works with the high schools. We end up teaching, so the high schools save dollars, so that instead of hiring a separate chemistry teacher and hiring a separate biology teacher, because the cost is so expensive, because now of the restrictions and the requirements and all for hiring a high school teacher, we meet those needs. And now the community is better served. My question for you is, students like myself who are having the success or are going to be reaching the next level, there's going to be more behind us. What can we do? What can you do as not just yourself, but taxpayers together, so that we can ensure that these community colleges are meeting those needs and people like myself can have success, reach a four-year school, and reach their aspirations?
So one thing I feel very strongly about, there is always, if you look at this country, there's always a real estate bubble when mortgages are too easy to get. There is a higher education bubble to an extent in terms of its costs when student loans are too easy to get. The notion of anyone graduating today with $140,000 in student debt is a tragedy. If you'll indulge me, I'll tell you a quick story. I worked 2 jobs in the summer when I attended Seton Hall and was able to save $3,000. My father would put $50 a week away in the credit union, and every September 1st hand me a check for $2,500. and I would get a guaranteed student loan for $2,500. And that $8,000 got me through Seton Hall. And when I graduated, I had $10,000 in student loan debt, and my first job was $32,000, 3-to-1 ratio. Today, we know it is flipped, and I know your college president's working on these things. We need to get creative. I read a new deal this past week. I believe it's between Rowan University and Gloucester Community College for a flat $25,000, 3 years at the community college, 1 year at Rowan. You've got your bachelor's degree. In Burlington County, yes. I'm seeing more and more community colleges where you could take credits while you're in high school. That the courses may be dual accredited. I know we have that in Somerset County. I championed one of those programs. We call it Law and Public Safety Academy and the Health Science Academy. There's different things that we can do to be creative to bring down the cost of higher education. And the other thing that I've advocated for is this, the community college deal, and I applaud you. Anyone who attends community college is a financial wizard because it's the best deal in the Western Hemisphere. At Somerset, at Raritan Valley Community College, you get your associate's degree for less than $8,500. Start on day one of junior year at any one of 83 schools that the community college has an articulation agreement with. 2 years later, graduate with a bachelor's that says the four-year school. But I've said this all along. I think there's a better way for the federal government to deploy the $60 billion Department of Education budget. I don't want to see it cut. I want to see it redeployed. I feel this way. The farther any government gets away from the school district, the less impact it has on the quality of education. That's my own personal philosophy. So, the theory behind the community college system in New Jersey was a third, a third, and a third. A third of it paid for through county taxes, a third of it paid for by the state, and a third of it paid for by tuition. We know what's happened over the years, right, man? What's happened?
Right now, it's like, last I checked, it was like 18% to 20% was federal. Most of it was coming out of county and
Yeah.
tuition.
So I'm a little bit in the Bernie Sanders camp on this one. I think the best way to deploy a $60 billion federal Department of Education budget, free pre-K and free community college. That would offer return on investment in education. Yes, sir. Raritan Township, another constituent.
Assemblyman Bill Healy from
Yes,
Raritan
Bill.
Township. Good to see a Flemontonian here because my question speaks to municipal consolidation. I personally see that as a missed opportunity of the last 8 years and think of our two respective communities, one of which is a donut hole in the township that I live in, had an opportunity to consider merging but chose not to explore that. Do we really need, I guess now, 565 municipalities in a state that's 7,300 square miles? Do you still see an opportunity for municipal consolidation, and how might it fit into the points of your 5-point plan?
I do. There is waste when anytime anything is too large, and we see that in Trenton and Washington, but there's also waste when anything gets too fragmented. And we are too fragmented here in New Jersey. 565 municipalities, 588 school districts. More school districts than there are municipalities. It is redundant, it's wasteful, it is not the be-all, end-all to property tax reform. It will not have the same impact as my school funding reform plan. But my attitude when it comes to business is this. Anytime that I can maintain the quality of service and lessen the cost, I do it. Anytime that I can improve the quality of service and lessen the cost, you do it. And that's what we need to do. You know, I think it's really interesting. I came into the legislature in the 16th district right about the time that the Princetons were consolidating. So Princeton Township and Princeton Borough became one. Those were two all Democratic council and mayor that achieved that consolidation and that efficiency. We have a donut hole in the district with Flemington. There's a conversation to be had there. There's a conversation to be had. And I think what the next governor could do, and certainly one thing that I would like to do, because if anyone remembers, when I was on the Somerset County Freeholder Board, I tried not to consolidate towns, but I tried to regionalize 19 police departments. We studied it for 3 years. 100 people on the task force, broken up over 7 subcommittees. More than half of the 100 people were police personnel. I let them propose the new organizational structure without showing them the existing one. And to their shock, the new organizational structure that they proposed for a regional police force in Somerset County, 252 square miles, 325,000 people, had 60 fewer people in it than the 19 departments aggregated. And the savings over 10 years was $96 million. And 19 mayors bailed on me. It's hard. It's hard. But it's a discussion that we need to continue to have. And I would ask citizens that if you're going to gripe, rightfully so, about your property taxes, you're going to have to give your policymakers some leeway and some cover. Because the moment any legislator or any mayor or any council person is proposing a regionalization of police, you can best believe the next campaign season there will be a flyer that that person is compromising security in the community. But there's one question we never ask people that seek public office. Are you willing to lose the next election? Never ask that question. I think it's the most important question we can ask anybody. Are you willing to lose the next election? Oh, come on. I could do this all night. Jim.
Jack, I'll help you out. I commend you for reaching out to our federal representatives to solve some of the most intractable problems. And one of them that I am certain of, as you look around this room, virtually everyone knows someone who leaves New Jersey for 6 months and 1 day and goes to Florida or relocates to avoid the estate tax and inheritance tax that you've talked about by moving to, of all places, New York City. People are leaving New Jersey, people of wealth. And obviously, if you raise your income tax at the highest level, these are the people that are most susceptible to that call from Florida to go down there for 6 months and 1 day. Will your discussions with our federal representatives work to solve that problem?
It will. And listen, there's certainly danger in my tax reform proposal in terms of raising rates at the upper brackets. But I ask you this. In trying to achieve what's in the best interest of New Jersey, is my job to get the perfect or the best deal I can? The fact of the matter is the next governor will have to deal with an overwhelming Democratic majority in both houses. My job is to get us the best deal that I can. And I will tell you that my proposal will cost somebody that has $1 million a year in taxable income $1,100 or more a year. If you have $2 million in taxable income, it will cost you $11,000 more a year in income taxes. But what you will gain by not having the estate tax, transfer inheritance tax, the carry forward of capital losses, no tax on the gain of your sale of your home, second home, and the tax-free gain on the sale of family-owned business is more than attractive. I've sat down with people that are in those upper brackets, and they've said, compared to what we have right now, sign me up. One thing we'll never be able to do in New Jersey is legislate our climate. What we want to get people to do is not be so anxious to leave this state, for people's attitude about this state to change, and for even those of great affluence, because we can't legislate the climate, to not play the 6-month and a day game. How about if you just go away for 3 months? Because that's 3 more months you're here and you're buying. If your home is empty for 6 months and a day, we've lost economic stimulus. If your house is only empty for January, February, March because you don't like winter, I get it, but we just picked up 3 more months of economic stimuli. So I hear you, and I agree with you. And a great many people are going to look at my plan and say, what is he doing? But at the end of the day, I need something that will be acceptable to Democrats. Acceptable to Democrats. And it's not in my nature to run far right for primary reasons and then tax center for general election. It feels disingenuous. I can't do it. But guess what? You get the right to exercise your will in that voting booth. And as I always say, they put curtains on a voting booth for a reason. You'll know what to do. And I trust your judgment. And I trust your judgment even if that vote's not for me. Ben.
I want to thank the Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli, who I'm sure will be here for selfies and other kinds of additional questions. Everyone, thank you for helping us launch our 15th year of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics here at Rider. We've got a full program, a full slate of people coming throughout the year. We look forward to seeing you again. Everyone have a safe trip home. Thank you so much.